right, welcome back, everyone. We have another episode of the Blue Castle podcast for you. Thank you for coming back and joining us once again.
The crowd goes wild.
They are few, but they are
us.
passionate. We love our castle dwellers. So this episode is one that Sarah has done a lot of work to prep. We're really excited about it. We as in me. I think she's already done a lot of the footwork, and I'm just going to be dazzled by it. So
yes, be prepared to be dazzled.
If we didn't already say it, I'm your host, Molly.
Oh, yeah, I'm your other host, Sarah.
This episode is a trip budget comparison, but as far as how it's set up and how Sarah chose to go about it, I'm not quite sure. But this is one of my favorite parts about Disney. Not how expensive it is. Specifically not that, but I do love the planning around a budget. I think that is always fun and challenging, and to do it in a hypothetical world, I'm very curious what hypothetical trip Sarah has set up for me.
Yes, for you. All for Molly. So actually there are a lot of assumptions I made for these trips, and I'll just walk you through the whole concept now. So essentially what I wanted to do when I set out to kind of prep for this was I wanted to have one budget that's the same budget for 3 different hypothetical trips. So say I just got X amount of dollars. In this case, it was $6,000 for a trip, for a vacation. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to Disney World. I'm going to spend my $6,000 there.
$6,000?
Just wait. But there are some assumptions. So it is a family of 5, first of all. Because in this world, it was our family, our core family growing up. So my parents and our older brother and Molly, my younger sister. And so the budget is $6,000 each. The budget only includes, these are going to be our categories for today as well. Transformation to
Let me help you out there. Transportation to and from Disney World.
Yes. Transportation to and from Walt Disney World, assuming in this case you live in Dallas, just because that's where I live right now. Hotel, so what are your lodgings? Park days. Internal Walt Disney World transportation, so getting around once you get there. And then one bonus activity for each of these 3 hypothetical trips. And then I planned, the other assumption is that this is the first week of September. Those are just the dates I always looked at. So some of the variables, wow, I cannot talk. Okay, so some of the variables are, sorry. Some of the variables for this are obviously how you get to Disney World. Do you fly? How do you fly? Do you, whatever, or do you drive? And then what hotel do you stay at? How long do you stay there? How many days do you go to the parks? Do you even go to the parks? Do you get park hopper? Do you not? And then for transportation, it could be, I get Ubers and Lyfts everywhere, or I have to rent this special thing, or I just take free transportation. And then bonus activities, you take your pick of that. You can pick whatever bonus or free activities you could possibly want to do. So that's the concept here. Molly, do you have any questions before I get started, especially from the viewpoint of listeners who might not be following?
Not up front, but I might have questions as we go along. So just whatever your assumptions are, make them clear as you go, and or I'll ask you questions to clear anything up.
Okay, sounds good. So first category, the other thing I should probably say, trip number 1 is going to be our budget trip. Well, that's not probably the best way. Our value trip. You get a lot of value. We're paying the same amount for these 3 different trips regardless. So trip 1 is going to be doing it in a way that stretches your dollar for just the maximum awesomeness, and it makes it so you can have a longer trip. Really, that was my goal, is how do I make this as long of a trip as I can while still getting a really fun Disney experience. Trip 2 is kind of your middle of the road, and that also happens to be a moderate resort Or no, it isn't. Never mind. Scratch that. And then trip number 3 is going to be you tried to ball out and unfortunately you cut your own trip short because you spent up all of your $6,000 pretty quickly.
So is it a standard number of like days and nights for each trip, or does that vary based on how smart they are?
It varies.
Oh,
yeah. So whenever
okay.
I mentioned the variables, I said, yeah, that was one thing that can change is the number of nights. So I will talk through that as I get to that. That's just the second section. So you don't have to wait too long to hear about that. So I think I'll go ahead and get started. First category, transportation to and from Walt Disney World. So for trip number 1, our value trip. I don't want it to get confused with like a value resort is why I'm like, whatever. But our value trip, we decide to drive. We're going to drive from Dallas to Orlando. That is the most affordable way to do it. And the grand total using a website that automatically calculates gas cost for you given a certain car in miles per gallon is $716.88.
Is that round trip or is that just one way?
That's round trip. Both ways.
Oh, that's so expensive. I mean, I understand that for a family of 5 that's the cheapest way, but like I right now only pay for myself on these trips, so in my head for all transportation, flying is cheapest.
Yeah, it really is kind of crazy to think about it that way because I put a Honda CR-V, which is a tight squeeze for a family of 5.
Oh yeah.
But it gets decent gas mileage and anyway, but yeah, it's pretty pricey. So that's your cheapest option though, for a family of 5. Trip number 2. Oh, by the way, I said the youngest is 3 years old, which means they don't get any of like the child friendly discounts, but they can fit in like and they do need their own bed, but they can fit in small beds. Anyway, trip number 2. So this is your kind of middle of the road option. We decided to fly and we're going to fly Southwest Airlines. We get our bags checked, 2 bags checked for free because this is a big family, so we might need some checked luggage. And the total cost of that round trip is $1,400, just about.
That's a big difference. You have to pay double to fly.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yep. Because you're paying for each person, so you don't have a lap child.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this to me really did shed some light on whenever I hear of people saying, "Oh, we drove, to Disney. It was so much cheaper, whatever." It's like it really is quite a bit cheaper. That's like several nights of a hotel if you're, staying in an affordable hotel. Anyway, so
yeah,
that's
you're
trip
like,
number 2.
You're separated from that by like 2 degrees where you don't need to ever drive because you've so many points through the airline you work for that you don't really need to pay real money ever. And even if you were paying real money, it would be cheaper to fly because it's the same price to drive 1 person or 10 people, give or take.
Yep. All right, trip number 3. It's actually not that much more expensive, but I decided to look at some other airlines to see what your options could be. And I, on this one, decided, we're going to fly American Airlines. And that total was closer to $1,600, not including checked bags. So you would probably need to do or carry on only or pay a little extra for checked. I assumed you didn't check anything though. So that's your transportation. We're standing at around $700, $1,400, and $1,600. I have exact numbers on here, but I'll keep it simple. All right. Next, we're moving on to the hotel. So this is where it gets fun. It gets a little spicy.
Quick question. For driving, how long would it take to drive from Dallas to Orlando? And did you account for another hotel?
Oh, I did account for a hotel. That's why it was so expensive. I wrote that down and then I didn't look at my notes. That is a great call out. Thank you for saying that, or else I would have been quite misleading. So that included a decent hotel at a stop along the way that made sense for this location. I'm trying to remember where.
That makes sense. It did include a
hotel. Yeah. So it's actually probably closer to like $500 for gas. And then I think it was about $100 for a hotel stop. So 100 times 2 for 2 trips.
The other interesting thing is if there's 2 parents in the situation and they both have to take off an extra day of work, that PTO value. Like there's so many factors where there's not like a direct dollar amount for PTO, but it's valuable. So if you have to take off an extra day each way of driving just to drive, to me that makes it so much less worth it.
Yeah, it is all a big balancing act. It actually gets kind of overwhelming when you start to think about all the little decisions you have to make in order to plan a vacation. But I also love doing it. All right, so next, hotel. So for trip 1, our value trip, we're going to stay, I know this is a little weird, but we're going to stay at Caribbean Beach, which is a moderate resort, not a value resort. The reason I picked
can I guess?
is because...
Can I guess the reason? There's a 5th bed, so you don't have to get 2 rooms. Yay!
Nailed it. Yeah, and it's actually surprising how hard it was to find an affordable place for 5 people. So you could, and that other thing with Disney is you're really not, especially if you're going to get a package deal with park tickets too, you can't book a 4-person room for 5 people and just, set up a little space for them in the corner. Like they won't let you, because that you have to put all 5 of those people on the package in order to get them the tickets. And it would just get really complicated to try to split it up or whatever. So you really have to abide by their kind of people recommendations. And Caribbean Beach has a really affordable setup. For $255 a night, you can get a pretty comfortable 5-person room.
That's not
at
bad.
Caribbean Beach.
Also,
not bad at all.
We've stayed at Pop Century, and you have stayed at All Stars, and we've also stayed in the small Little Mermaid rooms at Art of Animation, and it would not be comfortable for a 5th person. Our family, we grew up, someone was sleeping on the floor. And I've learned since then that a lot of families didn't do that. They would get 2 rooms. We never would get 2 rooms. Someone would be sleeping on the floor. But back then, carpet was more common in hotel rooms. And I've learned a lot of, since being renovated, a lot of places have like laminate or fake hardwood of some sort. That's super uncomfortable. And those rooms, those value rooms with the 2 beds or 1 bed and the Murphy bed, they're so small. I don't know where you would put another person on the floor. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, they're pretty tight. And I've seen videos and vlogs of people in Caribbean Beach, and it looks like fairly spacious. Not as spacious as like our room at the Poly was, but definitely plenty big for all of that bed to be utilized and people to be able to walk around still. So yeah, that's $255 a night. And for this one, I was able to get 8 nights.
8 nights?
And still meet the $6,000. We still have some more costs coming up, of course. But I was able to get 8 nights because of how cheap the room is, how affordable the room is, and because of the fact that we saved a lot of money by driving.
8 nights might be
We're not
too
considering
much.
PTO.
8 nights might be even too much for a family of 5 in one room.
Well, I was really maximizing the budget here. So I got us a lot of, and if you think about it later, like you could dial back on number of nights and you could dial up some other things if you wanted to, or just save that money.
Or you could spend less money and put a good chunk of money toward your next trip to wherever.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Trip number 2 is going to be the hotel we're choosing for this one is Fort Wilderness Cabin.
Ooh.
Which has space for 6 people to sleep. So you could even bring a friend. And we're going to stay there for 6 nights.
Still good.
That's a very full vacation. Yeah. And the hotel cost per night is $370. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Caribbean Beach for 8 nights would put you at a total of about $2,300. And then Fort Wilderness Cabin for 6 nights is $370 per night, which would put you at about $2,500. So those are very comparable for, a couple of nights less.
And do those cabins have 2 bathrooms? I don't know.
I don't remember.
Because that's huge. If you're spending that much time.
That would be amazing.
I know that at Art of Animation, their family suites have 2 bathrooms. And I think they have somewhat of a similar setup. Let's see. I'm going to look it up, but you can keep going.
Yeah. And the other thing with the Fort Wilderness cabins, so they're renovating some of the cabins, and I don't know if they're going to renovate all of them, if they're going to leave some of them as the original rustic vibe. But this is the original, more rustic vibe. It still very much has everything you need. It's not like that rustic, but the new ones are much more like modern and sleek looking. And this is the OG. So these may not be available for like that much longer if they're all going to get flipped to the new vibe soon. But those other ones, they were a lot more expensive, the refreshed ones.
I'm trying to see. I'm looking at their website. They don't even list how many bathrooms there are. It says... So I'm just going to look through the pictures, I guess, to see if I can see two distinct restrooms. I
want to say it's just one bathroom, but I could be wrong.
This is also good for kids because there's like a master bedroom, if you will, with like it looks like a queen bed and a bunk bed set up, which if you have kids that don't like sharing a bed, or maybe it's like a weird age to share beds or something. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just one bathroom.
Which would be fine. Whatever.
We would have much preferred.
In the woods.
Growing up, we would have much preferred the twin or the bunk beds. Now, I don't know if I'd want to climb to the top, but I think I'd still prefer that over sharing a bed with the likes of you.
Yes, because I'm disgusting.
Yeah, you get it.
I get it. All right. Trip 3, the hotel for trip 3 is going to be, drum roll please, the Grand Floridian.
Whoa!
Because we just talked about it. But we're only going to stay here for 4 nights. Still a decent length of a trip. But compared to our 8 nights at Caribbean Beach, it's pretty drastically different. And we do have to save some money later on in the trip in order to help cover the cost of this in our budget. So 4 nights, it's a cost of about $670 per night for the dates that I found. And again, this one has the 5th sleeper Murphy bed situation. Not super easy to come by. I did look for this on DVC Rental Store, but it was sold out. Or I think there's maybe only like you could get it for one night, literally one night. So I think it's probably very difficult to get this from DVC points if it's that near term of a trip. So I was kind of considering this as like, it's the beginning of summer and we're planning a trip for the very end of the summer, and we can't use DV Rental Store or any kind of rental situation to get DVC rooms, because that is one of the perks of being an actual Disney Vacation Club member, is you get to book early and those rooms get snatched up. So
quick side tangent. There might be a second bathroom in the cabins in the last scenario, because I just looked up these family suites at Art of Animation and they don't say anywhere that there are 2 bathrooms in them, which there are, and the pictures don't show it, which is weird.
You should advertise that.
Yeah, that's a big selling point, but they don't make that point on their website. I don't even know if we probably knew it because we watched like a video going into it when we stayed there, but otherwise Disney doesn't tell you.
Interesting. Well, regardless, it's whatever. Grand Flo does not have 2 bathrooms. I'm fairly confident of that. Actually, I'm not that confident, but I would guess so. But anyway,
a standard room, no, they wouldn't.
Yeah. So Grand Floridian, 4 nights, cost per night $670-ish, which puts you at $3,000 for half the duration of your Caribbean Beach trip, which is pretty crazy. And that one was $2,300 total, and this one's $3,000 total. So
a $6,000 budget is pretty high, but it is crazy how fast that budget can go if you're stupid.
Yeah. No, exactly. This, yeah, exactly. And I think like you could cut the value trip in half, and suddenly it's a $3,000 trip, and that seems a lot more reasonable. And very easily you could
it'd be more than that a little bit, because your park tickets would be more expensive for a shorter stay, and you'd still have to do the full drive.
Yeah, but you'll see later I added some anyway. All right, so that is trip 1, 2, and 3 hotels. So you probably guessed it, but trip 3 is very much in the lead as far as using up the budget. Okay, next category is park days. This one will be a little bit quicker because we did maybe not. We'll see. Park days for trip number 1 for our Caribbean beach, our more value-ish trip, we are going to the park 4 days. And I am a single park girl at heart, and I went with single park. That is the most valuable way to do it. And that cost for 4 days was $133 per ticket, which put them for a family of 5 for 4 days at about $2,700 total.
$133 per day is not too bad. For a family of 5, it gets real pricey, of course, but like that's not a bad daily rate.
No, and it's not very popular time of year to go. Early September is when school is starting. A lot of people are not out and about on vacation still. They've wrapped up their vacations and it's really hot. So kind of makes sense that it was more affordable this time. Plus you're doing a package deal, so it is a little bit more affordable that way. For trip number 2 and 3, I actually did the same thing on both of those. So I did 2 park days for each of those trips and single park tickets again, just because when I was looking at my budget, I was like, I really can't afford much more. So I went with single park, even though Grand Flow people would probably be the ones to get park hopper, but they couldn't afford it. They spent too much on their hotel. And that cost per night was actually only $141. So the price difference for buying in bulk more days of park tickets, it's really not that much.
Wait, how many nights would you be staying at the cabin in your middle scenario?
6.
6 nights and only 2 park days. That's not.
You'll see.
Okay.
Well, the thing you have to think about at Fort Wilderness is there's so much to do all around that whole area. So I started to consider that second trip is a totally different vibe than the other trips, really. Okay. Because you're exploring the Fort Wilderness area and you have some spending money at the end. So you can do some activities.
Gotcha. I just thought they were already out of budget somehow.
Not quite. They don't have a ton of money for all the other things, but they can definitely do some stuff. Let's see. Yeah. So your total for, like I said before, 4 park days, the total was $2,700 for these trip 2 and 3, the, Fort Wilderness Cabin and the Grand Flow trips. The total for each of those would be about $1,400 for park days. You know, you're saving yourself quite a bit of money by going to the parks less, which is part of why we recommend break days or rest days, because yeah, you made it all the way to Disney and you're staying the night there and whatever. So you feel like, oh, I need to like maximize every day with park days, but actually taking a break, it does save you a lot of money and you're going to want to take a break.
And the nicer the place you stay at, the more time you're going to want to spend at your resort. Probably you're spending a pretty penny to be there. Might as well enjoy it, which is one of the conversations we keep having about our upcoming trip in September. We're kind of itching to get into the parks, but we're also staying at a deluxe. So what's the right balance? It's a tricky thing.
Yeah. Well, it's especially tricky because we just went on a trip to Disney World where we didn't go to any parks. And then my last trip before that was another trip where I went to a park. I was there for 3 weeks and I went to a park, or I did a park hopper one day, and then we did a water park. And so I've been at Disney a lot, but I haven't gone to the parks very much. I mean, the last time we went to parks like a lot was October of 2022. So it's been a long time since we've spent a decent amount of time in any of these parks. So I think we're extra itching to get in the parks, but also we're staying at a deluxe. So it's a balance. Next category is internal Walt Disney World transportation. So this one is cheaper because you're just getting around internally. And this one was kind of unique. I would have just said zeros across the board because at this point, trip number 1, they're going to do the affordable thing and do the free Disney transportation. And trip number 3 can't afford to do anything else. They're literally already maxed out at over $6,000, just $6,056. So they have to do Disney transportation, even though they're tempted to ball out with minivans. And I fully intended for them to get minivans, but they decided to do 4 days.
Wait, which one is that?
The Grand Float, trip number 3.
Well, Grand Float, they could also get to Magic Kingdom and Epcot on the monorail, which is not bad. That's one of the deluxe perks.
Yeah, and they only have 2 single park tickets, so let's just assume they went to Epcot and Magic Kingdom. But so trip number 2, our middle of the road trip, Fort Wilderness cabin trip. If you don't know, Fort Wilderness is a huge area, and it includes all of these cabins, and it includes campsites, campground. And so people can bring campers, they can just pitch a tent, they can glamp or whatever, but it is a massive space, and it is very common and highly recommended to get a golf cart. So this family of 5 decides to get a golf cart because they are only going to the park for 2 days, and they have a six night stay at Fort Wilderness. So they're going to need a way to get around, and they're going to spend a lot of time at their resort. So it's going to cost them $70 per day to rent a golf cart.
That's more than a rental car.
Yeah, it's kind of a lot, but it's a Disney golf cart, which is just a normal golf cart.
Can they charge it at their cabin? How does charging it work?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't really think about that. I would assume so. And the total for them, because they're staying 6 nights, but they're paying by day for the rental car. So it's 7 days of having, the golf cart. So that's going to cost them $490. So that's a pretty steep expense, but it's going to be a blast. I've heard great things about having a golf cart at Fort Wilderness and how fun that is.
I'm sure it's fun. It's just, wow, it's pricey.
Yeah, I know. I was really thinking it would be like $30 a day, but nope. So that is the second to last category. And actually, this is going to be a really short episode unless we have lots to talk about after. But final category is bonus activity. So this was basically where I said, okay, you have a little extra spending money because you were so smart with your budget of $6,000 that you can go do some extra fun things. And we're going to assume everyone has to obviously spend money on dining and, whatever souvenirs and stuff that they want to do. So those are not going to be included in the $6,000. But the bonus activity for trip number 1, our value trip, is resort hopping and snacks.
What?
Fun snacks.
That's not a bonus activity. That's free. Well, snacks aren't free, but that's as free as you can be.
Yeah, they only had $320 to spend. So, I guess they could go over to Fort Wilderness and do something. They could do whatever they want with it, but I'm picturing a Caribbean beach family. They're going to the parks 4 days. They're going to be there 8 nights. Maybe they go to Typhoon Lagoon, or they go, something like that. But
they also could go one less night, and maybe the mom goes and gets a massage at Grand Flow to get her little experience. You can play around with that. It's not in the scenario that you laid out, but 8 nights is a lot for a family of 5 to be in one hotel room together.
Well, I did plan the second trip first. Full transparency. I was like, I'm going to do the middle of the road one, and then I'm going to go above and below. And so Caribbean Beach really let me stretch the dollar and go a long time. And I liked the neatness of it being 8 days, 6 days, and 4 days. But anyway, the bonus activity for trip number 2, I'm going to let you guess. What do you think the bonus activity for Fort Wilderness cabin is?
I think it's going to be either horseback riding or archery or something there. Maybe the marshmallow campfire s'mores roasting. Am I in the right ballpark?
The last thing you said is what I chose. And actually, I didn't look up costs of horseback riding or archery, but I think those would be comparable or, I've heard they're pretty affordable. And probably not everyone would do it. Probably just the kids or whatever, but one of the kids, 2 of the kids, whichever ones are old enough, that kind of thing. I said Chip and Dale's Sing Along, where you buy the s'mores kit and you do the s'mores kit with Chip and Dale. And I had them it was $150 left in their budget approximately. And so I just had them ball out on the s'mores, but they're there for 8 nights. So they go back multiple nights. They go
They're
to
not there
Chippendale
they're for
sing-along.
6.
Or sorry, 6. Yes. Good catch. They are there for 6 nights. They're only going to the parks 2 days though. So they have a lot of time where they're going to want to enjoy Chippendale sing along. They loved it the first time they went, so they wanted to go back, and they had leftover s'mores stuff.
God.
So
Kids cannot get enough s'mores.
There's also so much awesome stuff. Like they can go watch the Main Street Magical, not Main Street, the electrical water pageant. They can watch that from Fort Wilderness, and they can watch the fireworks from, views by the water and stuff. So there's a ton of fun stuff. And then like Molly said, horseback riding and archery and things like that. There are also good pools there. There's a lot of stuff to do. Plus you have a golf cart, and you want to, you're driving around all over the place, just exploring and enjoying that too. All right. So last one, trip number 3, your bonus activity. You have no money left. So you're resort hopping, and you're only getting the freebies. You're going to Basin, which is at your resort, and you're washing your hands there.
Your bonus activity is washing your hands.
Because you're out of money. You don't have any more because you spent $676 a night on your hotel, and that really sucked up all the money. So,
but you're staying at Grand Flow. You're enjoying the pool. You're enjoying just the environment there. I will say that even your cheap days, in air quotes, at Disney of not going into a park, you're still going to be eating. Like you're still going to be wanting to do things here and there. It's not like you're going to have a no spend day at Disney. That'd be really hard. No, and
the other thing is like, I don't know. It's kind of like once you say, okay, I'm staying at Grand Flow, you're like, well, I'm going to eat at, I'm going to try Citrico's, and I'm going to get some nice food or whatever. But if you're staying at Fort Wilderness, you might be like, oh, I'm going to order Instacart and buy a bunch of fruit and veggies and snack stuff and put it in our fridge in our big cabin so that it's really convenient for us and it's affordable. Like
did you include food in this budget at all? We didn't really talk.
No. Yeah, I said that at the beginning kind of toward the beginning that I didn't include food at all because I just assumed that one, that's really hard to calculate. Like that's a lot of days to calculate food. That is something to consider though. If you're staying there for 8 nights, that's a lot more eating than if you were only staying there for 4 nights. But
the only way it'd be easy to calculate would be if you just assumed everyone got the Disney dining plan.
Yeah, which I didn't want to deal with that.
Which is very expensive.
Yeah. So anyway, that is the 3 trips with one budget. I think the moral of the story is, oh my gosh, you can stay there so much longer and still have a great trip and you can maximize your dollars so much, but just by being smart about where you stay, how many days you go to the parks, and what transportation options you choose.
How much was the room per night for the Caribbean resort and for $255, and then how much was the cabin?
$370.
I really think that the middle of the road option for this family, what I would pick, I think, I don't have kids, so I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but stay at the cabin. That doesn't seem like a terrible price per night to have a little bit more room and drive. Mm-hmm. And if you'd done both of those things, you could kind of counterbalance you could kind of get the best of both worlds, where you don't need to go to Disney for 8 nights. I mean, maybe if you're going from international, or I don't know, but 8 nights is a really long time. I can't get over 8 nights in a single hotel room with a family of 5.
Yeah. So I just did the math on that scenario where you said, okay, let's say we drive and we go to Fort Wilderness for 6 nights. That puts you at about $5,260. And you're only going to the parks 2 days. So maybe then you just add another park day.
Yeah, that seems like a good option, because then you'd have 3 park days, and out of 6 days, that would give you plenty of time to explore the resort. That's probably the Goldilocks option out of these. Not that I have anything against Grand Flow, but I would rather if you're going to spend $6,000 I'd much rather be there a couple of days longer than just 4.
Yeah. And the other thing, obviously, like I said, I would have in this scenario booked through Disney and not DVC rental store. So the other way is like if you want to experience Grand Flow and get a good deal, like I would have to start looking for like February at this point of the year. Right now when we're recording, it's the end of May. So if I'm looking maybe at February, I could get a better deal for Grand Flow. It probably would still be 400 to 500 instead of 670 a night, but that still gets you, maybe you could stay there one more night, or you could, do another park day or something like that. So there are definitely ways to like fiddle with all of this and kind of perfect it to make it your perfect trip. You can, and I think we should do a version of this where it's like just 2 people or just one person, and see how it changes things, because you can be so much more flexible doing that with not only where the room you stay in, but also, it's cheaper to fly that way.
Another tip, I haven't done this before, but I'm pretty sure it would work just based on their policies. If you are a person that wants to go on a Disney vacation and you want to stay deluxe, but like the group you're going with, maybe it's your family, your extended family, or maybe it's just like your husband or your wife or whatever, and they don't want to plan a vacation that far in advance. A lot of people don't. A lot of people kind of only want to plan like the next 6 months or less. That's how our mom is. But you can go ahead and reserve on DVC rental store. You can go out and try to get your dates and your ideal setup booked. And then if you decide to change your mind, as long as you're within their cancellation policy, which I think is pretty generous, you can get your down payment back as credit for a future trip. So as long as you're sure you're going to go at some point in the future, I could see myself being that crazy person. I say crazy in quotations because I would do it for sure. I could see myself going ahead and booking at least the DVC through the DVC rental store. Book your week or the days that you want to be at whatever place. And then once it's a little closer to time and closer to the end of your cancellation policy, then you can bring it up to your whoever you'd be traveling with and say, hey, would you be interested in going to Disney? I have this room booked. I can cancel it. It's no big deal. That way, like you reserve the option.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, I think that is good for people who are organized enough to remember that they should cancel it, or people who are okay with having that hang over their head knowing you may have to cancel it. I'm fine with that kind of thing, but I know that it's not for everyone.
Well, that could go for cruises too, because the best deals on Disney cruises, I think on any cruises, but especially Disney, is to book like as soon as the new dates open. So as soon as, right now it's May 2024. I think you can book through like fall of 2025, which is what we did when we originally booked our trip for the September. And we've been counting down to it for over a year, and it gets painful. So if you want to be the one to be the hero for your family, book your trip beforehand and don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone. And then once it's closer to time, you can either surprise your family members with it or bring it up as an option that you're comfortable canceling.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think I would get so bummed though, because I would get attached to it. And then what if somebody was like, no, actually I can't do those dates, or I really don't want to stay there. I want to stay there.
I think there might be even more tips and tricks where like maybe you could book multiple. That might put you on their no list if you booked multiple and were constantly canceling.
I don't think so. I think that they would be fine with it, honestly. I think it's like, as long as you end up paying for something eventually. Oh, the other thing I didn't mention, I was just looking back at all of these trips or screenshots I took just kind of as my documentation of these prices. There was a good deal going on at the time that I was looking, and this was on sale. So I think all 3 of these were on sale. They were like 20% off, which is pretty common for some reason, like July, September. Usually they have some good deals, which maybe because it's so hot, I would think it would be, at least in July, still pretty busy, but maybe it's like just late July. Anyway, I should have looked at what those actual dates were, but
they've had a deal lately when I've looked at it where it's been like stay longer and save, and it's advertised as if you stay 5 nights or more, you get like a 30% discount on your nights. But when I've tried to book, for like 2 nights or just gone through the process of booking a 2-night stay, it will still give you the stay longer and save price, which if you're Disney and you're listening, I'm sure you've already fixed the problem and it's just an error. Don't check on it.
No, what I'm looking at, it says save up to 30% on rooms. Offer details are most nights from July 8th through October 3rd. So it's through, that's basically what I said. After 4th of July, but through all of September and a little bit into October. And then the length of stay requirements is minimum 1 night, maximum 14. So that's pretty good.
It's funny that they even put that requirement on there, because I think if you're going to stay longer than 2 weeks, you have to like call them to book it anyway.
They were like, you can't stay here forever.
I wonder if anyone would do that. If you had the option, if you were like so rich, would you just want to live at Disney?
I'm just looking at all this documentation again. The s'mores kit is $9.99. And I think that's like for at least a few s'mores. So they got a lot of s'mores for $150. They got like 30 s'mores at minimum. I
do think it's wild that your activity was just s'mores and limited.
No, we'll definitely split that up. I don't know what I was thinking. I should have been like, you could get horse riding and archery and
Sarah just really likes s'mores. She always has.
I really do. I actually do. But so Fort Wilderness, I wanted to say these price differences like with the sale versus non-sale. So, or I'll start with trip 1, which was Caribbean Beach. That standard room rate was $332 a night, and we got it for $250 in this hypothetical scenario. Wilderness Cabin was originally $493 a night, and we got it for $370. That's pretty good. And then Grand Floridian. Oh, I did get us a theme park view. It wasn't that much more. Standard room rate was $902, and we got it for $676.
That's crazy that the standard is $900 something a night. That's wild.
Yeah, it's actually insane. It's literally just a normal size. I mean, it's a fairly decent sized normal hotel room with a little kid sized pull out or like Murphy bed. Well, actually, it can fit us moderate sized adult too, but anyway, so we also got a deal. Those are very good deals.
When you said 200 something per night for Caribbean Beach, I knew that was a good deal, because generally speaking, most of the time if you're going to Disney, you can expect to pay in the 200s per night for a standard value room, in the 300s per night for a moderate, and then for deluxe it's like 500 plus. That's kind of generally what I've seen. And that's not talking about like your villas, your cabins. And I'm talking about like the ones that have 2 beds and maybe a pull down.
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting. Like I knew that Caribbean Beach, I have known for a long time, just from being someone who watches vlogs a lot, that Caribbean Beach is really popular with a lot of different people. And I've never been like super drawn to the theming. Like it's cute. I like it. It's great because it's on a Skyliner. But I've never been like, ooh, I'm just dying to stay there. I want to stay there. But I can see how you would just fall into like, that's the most logical option for our family. Like it makes a lot of sense. It's affordable, good location.
Skyliner.
But it's also Skyliner, and it's right next to Riviera. I mean, there's so much going for it, and it's just, it's convenient. The only thing is if you get in a bad building, like a building that's happens to be really far from like everything, but there are ways you can like request many times and be like, please give me this building, please, that you'd be more likely to get it.
The pros definitely outweigh the cons, especially for the family of 5. They have like that 5th person. That is the thing that tilts the scales toward, Caribbean Beach, definitely, versus like anywhere else.
Exactly. Yeah, because the cheap option, if you had a family of 4, would definitely be like All Stars. Like they could have stayed there for like 14 nights. I don't know, a lot longer, especially if this deal applied to the values. I don't know if it did. That's all I have. Do you have anything else, Molly, you want to add to?
I would not recommend 8 nights unless you like really have, if you have like a parent that has a job that is off for 2 weeks every year for plant shutdown or I don't know, for something specific, I can see going for 8 nights. But other than that, that's a long time at a not relaxing vacation. Disney can be relaxing, but for the most part, that's not the overarching word I would use to describe it. I would say shorten your trip, add more bonus things in, or just save that money and put it in an investment account so you can just keep going to Disney every year.
Amazing. Yeah, I don't know. Growing up, I was always like, why are our trips so short? Like, it always felt like a week always just felt too short. So it is kind of a dream of mine to have like 8 nights where you're just fully in vacation mode. I'm sure it would get old, but I am the type of person, like, I rarely am like, okay, I want to come home now. I'm always like, I could stay here another week. Like, I rarely overstay my trips, but maybe that's just my personality. I don't know.
I get a little homesick where I start like craving my own bed and stuff. But if you had enough space where everyone had like their own little nook or cranny they could go back to where you weren't on top of each other the whole time, that's what would make the difference for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the way we did vacations growing up, a week would have been a long time. I love you, Mom and Dad, if you're listening, but as the child that was often on the floor, you were too, we would take turns. It was it could be rough for if we were going to be there for a long time.
Yup. Alrighty, I think that's gonna do it. This was very fun for me, a fun little exercise. We'll probably do some different variations on it in the future because it's interesting and fun, and it to me, it just motivates me to know I'm doing the right thing by choosing affordable options, because it's allowing us to go to Disney more often and for longer, whenever we are smart with our budgeting.
And I don't know if everyone thinks this way, like if everyone's super interested to go into the numbers of it, but maybe in the future when we go on trips, we do the regular pre-trip episode, post-trip episode, and then a final cost breakdown in the end of like, how much did it cost? How did we use our money? What do we regret? What do we like financially? What would we change?
Yeah.
I like that.
Let's do it. All right. Thank you all for listening. We hope you liked it, and we'll see you later, Castle Dwellers.
Bye.
Bye.